Okay, so I'm going to make a quick video here to show off kind of how to make new ground tiles for the game, and you could use this as a reference to figure that out in case you forget or whatever, however it works. So to make new tiles, one, assets folder, find the textures folder. We store all the actual 2D textures in the textures folder. In the tiles folder, you will find the actual tiles. You're going to find individualized tiles. These are actually what ends up getting exported and used by the game. Is the data for these is what they actually ends up being used. You go to Inspector, you can kind of stare at them. There's not really much here. You can change the shaders. You can change how the collider is actually done, and everything else doesn't really matter too much. What actually does matter is making new tiles. To make new tiles, which I've already kind of done, you open up the GIMP file. So if you don't have GIMP installed, you need GIMP installed. You can use the latest, doesn't really matter. I'm a little bit behind on what version I'm using. Get this open, and you just kind of put new tiles in here where you can find space. If we need more tiles than there is space available, we can make another sheet. I don't think it matters too much, or we can increase the size of the sheet. I don't really know if there is a limit at the moment. But to make a new tile, you can pretty much by default just kind of duplicate a layer. So this is kind of what I do. I duplicate a layer and then I end up moving it to a new spot over here. The tiles themselves are 64 by 64, but there is a gap around them to solve pixel bleeding. This is kind of a temporary solution until we can find a better solution, but it just kind of works. That's the reason why you see these lines. The green lines are the dividing between the tiles. The blue lines kind of just help you figure out what part of that is actually a usable tile, what part is not. To make new lines, actually in this as well, is you can just do this right here. So you can get a 64 by 64. You kind of just line it up so that way it looks like there's 2 pixels on all sides, and then you come up to the image, guidelines, and you want to make new guide from selection. That'll create a new set of blue lines, and you only have to do that once per row and column. So like if you went down a new row, you'd have to make a new one. If you went over a new column, you'd have to make a new one. But that gives a new tile, and then you just do whatever you want. Say for example, we wanted to just colorize this tile and make, say, like a brownish tile. We could do that and make a new tile. We can name this like cracked sand yellow, although I think in game we can actually colorize these, so we wouldn't actually have to go through the process. But we do have that available, so we have different layers, different things we can work on, and everything else. You then hit File, Save to make sure you save. Then you want to hit Export As. You want to select the ground PNG, hit Export. That'll actually export the image, and that should be all you really have to do, because all the tile slicing is already done. So once you get it saved, you're good to go, and it should generate a new tile in here. Or rather, it's not even generating a new tile, it's going to replace one of the existing tiles. So we should see now in here a kind of yellowish tile. If not, we can click this, just kind of I believe you click this and sprite editor. So you could reslice these. I don't recommend reslicing them, but yeah, we can see our tile is actually there. It's going to be, what, say, tile 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. It's going to be tile 7, theoretically. Let me go ahead and close this without actually changing any things. There we go, tile 7. So it does take a little bit to refresh, because I think what it's doing is reslicing and reapplying. So we'll create our tile, and then if we come over to the palette, our new tile should actually be there, and we can actually go ahead and place this in the world and paint with it. Not the most prettiest looking tile, but hey, we got a tile. So if you want to make tiles that way, that does work. If you want to make a new tile sheet, you actually are going to have to go through the process of slicing it. Slicing is not the hardest thing in the world to actually do. You just click here, do the sprite editor, and you set up the slice. Right now we've got it set to slice based on, it's actually not set up anymore. We get set by cell size, and you set the size, and you would set an offset of like 2 and a padding of 2. So it would start slicing at every 2, and it would start slicing at a padding every 2. And you could reslice, which I'm not going to do because it would mess it up, but you could make a new sheet that way. And that's about it. It's a really simple process. You just use GIMP to make it. If you don't really like using GIMP, you can make it in Paint and then just import it into GIMP. But the thing is, you will actually have to put it into these individual grid cubes, and then make sure the grid cubes actually do match. Because if you do move a grid cube to, like, say you move this from slot 7 to 8, it will change what the map actually does render, because when it actually does come to rendering, it is going to use this right here. So if this color changed whatever, it's going to be the same thing up here. So if we change this to, say, a bluish tile, which we can do right now just to make this a thing, So I can click here, I can colorize that again. Actually, I don't want to do that one, I want to do this one. Colorize. Try to make sure you do, when you do put this on here, make a layer per tile. That way, if you're editing a tile, you can kind of keep it from messing up. So we hit that, hit File, Save, File, Export As, click. If you're in this and you're making multiple edits, by the way, you can just click Export, and it's a lot faster. You only need to do that Export As once per edit, but this should now update once it gets around to it, and we should see that change to a greenish color. And there it goes, it does update. It does take a little bit of time to do it, is because this program is not the most speedy, but we get that in there. It's actually not a bad looking texture too. But yeah, that'll work.